Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast, and happy to have on with us Gene Henley. He covers the Chattanooga Mocs for the Chattanooga Times Free Press, and man, I think Illinois has had enough of Chattanooga already this year with Chattanooga giving Illinois basketball team one heck of a game that Chattanooga should have won. They were the better team for most of that game. Illinois finds a way to survive at least for another day or two. But now the Mocs, the football team, pretty good football team at the FCS level, top 10, number 9 in the latest coaches poll. They come into Champaign. And Gene, I think Kentucky would tell Illinois fans, hey, you should beware the Mocs, huh?
Yeah, quick side note. What's funny is when I heard that Illinois was playing Chattanooga in football this year, I actually with all the realignment stuff going on, I was really just concerned. I'm like, is there something? It's maybe the Big Ten trying to get down to the southern markets, um, but yeah, like it's a good team, and I know we'll get more into it, but they are a talented uh, they're a talented team that's not quite as good in certain as they were last year in certain places, but considerably better at other places.
Well, let's talk about this Mocs program first before we dive too much into the team. This has been a strong program for what seems like a decade here across 3 different coaches. Tom Arth, who went on to Akron, was a pretty good coach here. But they're the SoCon favorite this season. What is this program under Rusty Wright a couple years into his tenure?
Well, it's kind of crazy because he takes over. I was actually covering Tennessee when he took over, so but I knew him from his prior stint as the linebackers coach. And so when I get there, I get back after COVID. You see a guy who's trying to get this thing on the right sort of footing. I mean, Tom was okay. Tom was 3-8 and 6-5, and like the program itself, it kind of dipped in that time span. I think like I think Tom's a great guy, but I think you look at his period in Akron and can kind of tell that that Division I college coaching may not be the right move for him. But Rusty comes in, has to kind of do some stuff as a first time head coach that he's not understanding. He's making bad decisions and bad choices along the way, but along the way they're getting talent. Like this year, they've accumulated a great amount of talent, and one game, I know a lot is we're going to talk about this Illinois game, but they don't want this to be the game that defines them. Like if they win this game, their goals are obviously make it to the playoffs and win the conference and maybe make a deep run into those playoffs. But like they're a program full of transfers and young guys at certain places, and they've just been able to put the mix together to make themselves be successful so far this season.
You mentioned maybe not as good in certain spots as last year, but certainly good. Off to a 3-0 start, ranked in the top 10 of the FCS. What have you learned about the Mocs through 3 games already?
Well, I didn't think they could be worse at quarterback. I knew they were going to be better regardless. They brought in the Eastern Michigan transfer and Preston Hutchinson, but they also returned last year's starter in Cole Copeland, 2 quality, quarterbacks. I mean, I think what separated Preston is the fact he can run with the football. But I mean, I think Cole, the issue with Copeland last year was the fact that he was the starter for most of 2017, and then he stepped away from football and pretty much from school for 3 years. And so when he got back, he was just so rusty, so just off, and you could tell that he had improved a lot in the offseason. So I know they're better at quarterback. They're very, very talented and very, very young at receiver. They're not nearly as good as what they were last year on the offensive line. I think when you lose a first round draft pick to the Patriots, you're not going to be as good. And the front seven of their defense is really good. It's still really good. Still questions. Still got to figure out some stuff about. I think their secondary. Got to figure some things out with that offensive line. But I'd say the majority of that team, the pieces that returned, they're still pretty good.
Let's talk about that offense. They got the new quarterback Hutchinson from Eastern Michigan, and he started off really well so far. It seems like Olim Ford is a really proven running back for them. They have McClendon Curtis, who looks like an NFL guy, potentially two NFL guys in a row on that offensive line. So, what is their identity offensively here, Gene, and what could make them successful offensively against a team like Illinois?
Well, like Rusty still is wanting to, he wants to be balanced on offense. They're not nearly as good running the ball this season, specifically with a limb, because early on, I think people have just kind of said, even as Preston has had success, they're still saying, yeah, he's got to continue that success. Maybe this is the game he won't do it. Maybe this is the game he won't do it. And he's the past 3 games, he stepped up, but they want to run it. I don't know exactly what their splits are, but I'm pretty sure they've run the ball more than they've passed this season. Like they want to, they want to run it. They don't want the quarterback to make bad mistakes. Preston had a really bad interception last week. He had an interception against Eastern Illinois that I don't think was his fault. It glanced off the receiver, popped up, and the linebacker comes and grabs it. He, for the most part, makes good decisions. I still, question him at times. Like, man, I just feel like he's got a 3-pick game coming, but he could also have like 5 touchdowns in a game. Like he's kind of high risk, high reward a lot of times. But for the most part, he makes good decisions with the football. And, and if he has success, that gives Alim an opportunity. And what you'll see about Alim on Thursday is he may get hit at the line of scrimmage and he'll still somehow gain 3 yards. It's just his kind of how he's wired. Like the kid, he came in, he signed with no coach. He actually committed to to Tom's staff. Signed before they'd officially named Rusty the head coach. Comes in, injuries got him into the lineup as a freshman. He rushes for 1,000 yards, tears his ACL, spends all of COVID like flipping trucks and stuff. It was weird. Like I saw these videos on social media of things he was doing. Like people said, he doesn't have breakaway speed. That's all he's worked on. First game of the season this year, he has an 85-yard touchdown run. People were like, hey, he can't catch. He had 2 touchdown catches this last week. Like that offensive identity is, in terms of like the playmakers, it starts with him, even with Preston. Obviously, McClendon is a pro. We'll see how high he goes. I think he goes in the first 2 days. Mm-hmm. At that size, 6'8", 320, he's a guard. He's played a little tackle, but he's mainly a guard. And then they've got a bunch of receivers who are all freshmen and sophomores. And like their leading receiver in terms of yardage this year is a redshirt freshman who was a walk-on, who the kid's like 5'8", like 180 or something. But if the kid was like 5'11", 6 foot, he would be like probably group of 5. He's been their leading receiver in 2 games. Their leading receiver in terms of catches is a sophomore. They've got a freshman speedster that, as long as he can catch the ball, it's really hard to stop one-on-one. I mean, like they've got a number of receivers, but this identity of this team will always start and stop with number 0 and what he can do rushing the football.
Yeah. Let's switch to the defensive side of the ball. And I think this is the thing that stands out to me most. And talking with Barry Lundy Jr., the offensive coordinator in Illinois, he agrees is that this doesn't look like an FCS front 7. You mentioned it. Devonta Maxwell could play for Power 5 teams. I think their running back Ty Back seems like he could be really, really good. So what are the strengths on that? What makes that group good? And what do you think they can do against a team like Illinois that has the leading rusher in the NCAA right now?
Yeah. And, 5 of their 6 non-secondary guys, front, however you want to, like front 3, edge, inside linebackers. 5 of those 6 guys are back from last season. And that was the same defense that limited Chris Rodriguez, I think 47 yards with 13 carries, I believe. Maybe it was 45. That was that was the same front that pretty much led the Southern Conference in every statistical category. And, Devontae is probably, it could be a pro. If he was 6'4" coming out of high school, Chattanooga would have never gotten.
Right.
Kind of the same stuff. Todd Beck, his dad played in Chattanooga. That kid's crazy. I saw a sack he had against Eastern Illinois. He just literally just ran over the guy and stared at him on fourth down. But he's a great player. Their other inside linebacker started his career at Louisville. Their edge rusher started his career at App State. And their edge rusher is actually really good too. He probably has an outside chance because he's like 6'3", 235, and he's very rangy. Their other defensive end is also really good. So, like, it starts with that group. It starts with that, those guys' ability to, take care of everything that needs to be taken care of, as the secondary tries to figure some stuff out in terms of who they're going to be, how they can kind of do what they need to do to, I don't want to say like not let the team down, but when you lose 4 starters in that secondary, there's going to be a drop off for a while, even though they're like far more talented and more athletic than they were last year at that position.
Yeah, they obviously made this a competitive game against Kentucky, took it into the fourth quarter last year. Can't find a spread on this game, but if you go by the S&P numbers, things like that, it's about 13 points by some of those metrics and things like that. So what is the key to the Mocs making this a competitive game that will make Illinois sweat?
Man, I don't want to say ball control, but yeah, I guess in a sense it's going to be ball control. I don't mean just run and just take 29 seconds off the clock for each play. I just basically mean don't turn the ball over and don't give up like big plays. I think, you look at that Illinois team, you look at just Brett Bielema team. Brett Bielema would, obviously has Iowa ties, and, he'd probably love to just line it up and rush it 55 times if he possibly can, but we're in 2022. You can't do that. It seems like they've improved at quarterback. I would guess that maybe their plan is to make that guy beat you, considering the fact that your other option is a much more talented version of a Lynn Ford, who has 400 yards rushing in 3 games, 400 something yards rushing in 3 games. I mean, Chase Brown's a really good back. So it seems like, Rusty kind of talked about today how, they got a quarterback that can make all the throws. Well, I think Chattanooga's going to try to make him make all of these throws, because I think that's your best chance of winning. If you let Chase Brown run wild and go for 225, I don't think he'll do that. But what's interesting, like this team, like you look at the losses that they had last year. Kentucky was just indicative of that season. First game they lost by 10. They lose to Kentucky by 5. They lose 2 games in the season by 4, and by 3, and they lose another game in overtime by 3. So they don't look at that Kentucky loss like that was just, man, that was just, we were right there. Like they said that was our season. We just didn't finish. And so I'll be interested to see. I think the conspiracy theory is that Illinois fans think that Chattanooga's kicker is going to make a field goal with no time left to make up for the shot that Malachi Smith missed at the end of the NCAA tournament. But I think that will be a very fun game to watch. I'm Rob Lowe at the Super Bowl when it comes to predictions. I try not to make them, but I mean, if you told me that I looked up and I saw like 28-17 Illinois or something like that, I don't think that Illinois is going to hang 50 on them, but I mean, at the end of the day, Chattanooga would take 70 to 75 of Illinois' players, and Illinois may take 5 or 10. So from a talent perspective, you would still expect Illinois to walk away with this, but I think that this is a very talented team, and who's hungry, and will make it a game, and we'll see what that looks like in the end.
Yeah. Before I let you go, Gene, what was the reaction when Malachi missed that shot. I mean, Coleman Hawkins made a great block on the initial one, but man, Malachi had a good look before he upped and left for Gonzaga, which who can blame him? But
yeah, I talked to a guy last night that suggested that maybe Illinois fans were maybe upset they didn't make a run at him, but when he put his name in the portal. But the way last season went was just, sometimes you feel those like sort of Cinderella type stories. You've been around it enough, like you're like, man, is this one going to go too? I mean, especially since the previous game, David G. Baptiste just hit that ridiculous shot from 40 feet out. And you're like, is it going to keep happening? Because that was a game that you felt like they deserved to win, but obviously you don't always get what you deserve. And I think that was just, it was an unfortunate ending to what was a great season for that team.
Yeah. And obviously Lamont Paris got rewarded for it going to South Carolina. I was really impressed when we covered him in Pittsburgh. I thought, he was a really good coach. So Chattanooga Mocs, Terrell Owens always supporting him. Good to see that. But Gene Henley, Chattanooga Times Free Press, always appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the game on Thursday night.
Yes, man. Hey, you too, man. Thanks for having me, man.